Okay, don't slouch. Have good posture, sit up tall. Do you have any boogers? It's like you might want to get that, Jolaine. Action. Right? Don't we need one of those things though? Okay, my name is Jolaine Undershute, and I am a CrossFit Masters athlete. I am also, I was a single mom, but I have a son. He's turning 12 this year. I also am the owner of Endeavor Fitness, and we just celebrated our 13th year of business here in our small town of Invermere. I have done all kinds of plethora of different athletics before I discovered CrossFit, and I've been very successful in my endeavors, but I also have been successful in inspiring others. And I have all kinds of different clientele, various different ages. I've had the pleasure of training a local hockey team, the Rockies, doing their dryland programming. I've also had the pleasure of doing the dryland programming for the Panorama ski team. And we've had some athletes that have had great success through their training here, and of course also through their training. I guess you have to ski in order to be good at skiing, but in our dryland strength and conditioning program, it is attributed to their success, I would like to think. So it started out from the age of 4. I was watching my dad do a handstand push-up, and apparently, as the story goes, because I don't remember, I mimicked him and I kicked up and I did a handstand push-up. So my parents, thought that was pretty interesting, and they put me into gymnastics. I was a gymnast for 8 years, but it was a long time ago. And back then, unfortunately, we didn't have spring floors, so all the repetitive tumbling took a toll on either the athlete's knees or athlete's ankles, and for me, it was my ankles. So when I was 12, I had to find different athletics that weren't as hard on my ankles, and I was even at one point, they were looking at surgery, but it was interesting because I was so young, but I was wise enough to know that if I didn't stop and change sports, that it could have long-term effects on me, right? How my mom described it is she said that I was extremely determined and very motivated. And she never really had to get after me to actually get my stuff ready and get ready for gymnastics or whatever other athletics it was that I was doing at the time. I wasn't into team sports. It was more individual sports until later on in life. But I would have all my stuff ready to go, and I'd be ready to go out the door, and I wouldn't complain, and I would just strive. I'd had this competitive drive ever since I can remember. I can't shut it off, and it's this drive to just become better and do better. So what I did is I went into trampoline and I went into platform diving. But before I did those competitively, I just tried a few different things out. I did breakdancing, I did jazz dancing, I did ballet for about a month. Ballet wasn't my thing. And I even tried competitive swimming, but it was a little, how can I say this? It was a little repetitive, just going back and forth in a lane. So when I discovered diving, I was really passionate about it, and my gymnastics helped with all of the twisting and the flips and that kind of thing. So competitive trampoline, diving, and then out of high school, I stopped working out, I would say probably for about a year, maybe 2 years, and I started going to the gym. I think it's because I competed for such a long time that when I had the opportunity to go down to California to be on the Mission Viejo diving team, and my dad was working out of Orange County at the time. And I was 16, and it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, I just want to hang out with my friends. I just want to, socialize. I just want to have a little bit of a life instead of going, back into, something that would be so regimented. Anyway, out of high school, because I wasn't training, I found that I wasn't in the same shape that I used to be. So I thought to myself, well, let's just go to the gym and see what happens, right? I had done a little bit of weight training in my gymnastics career, and then we had did some dance training for our floor routines and so on and so forth. So I went to the gym. I think it was Fitness World, and that's when they had a personal trainer take you around and show you some stuff, and then sell you, of course, their memberships. So had a great personal trainer that took me through and showed me a bunch of stuff. And then they had this circuit that you could do where you could go from like one station to the other, and it was a little bit higher intensity, and there was lots of different things involved, and I really enjoyed that. And then this is like way back when you had step aerobics and all kinds of different aerobics classes, so I really enjoyed those as well. And I did a little bit of weights, but I really didn't get into the heavier weight training until later on in life. So that was kind of the start of, you can call it bodybuilding if you want to, right? But it was more like interval training, some bodybuilding, and a lot of aerobics up until probably about 33. And at 33, I decided I want to become a fitness competitor. I want to do those flashy routines to music where you're implementing strength poses and holds. Over the years, every once in a while, I'd be like, messing around and be like, I can still do a backflip, or I can still do this. I can still do a couple tumbling passes. I still had a trampoline at home to practice. I never let age be a number as to why I wouldn't continue to pursue something or try something. I remember at the gym, I sprained both my wrists because I slipped on an exercise ball with dumbbells and fell backwards. And I went to physio, and at the age of 34, my physiotherapist, I was telling her that I was on vacation and I was playing around and I was doing some handstand work and stuff. And she said to me, I don't think I'll ever forget it, she said, "What is a 34-year-old woman doing handstands for?" And I looked at her and I said, "Because I can," right? So it was one of those things where I didn't put limitations ever on myself just because I was a certain age. And then with my fitness, competing in fitness competitions, I ended up moving from Vancouver to Invermere, and I started going to the gym in Invermere, and it was not what I was used to, coming from such a large city with lots of amenities and lots of equipment and lots of other athletes that I was competing with. Now I was in a small town, and I ended up meeting my business partner at the time, and we started training together, and it was him that introduced me to CrossFit. And we were looking at these workouts and we're like, well, what are these? What should we try? What should we do? And we're like, let's pick something easy, right? So we actually picked a workout called Cindy. And Cindy is as many rounds as possible in 20 minutes of 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, and 15 air squats. As many rounds as possible is called an AMRAP. So that's your abbreviation for that. So I remember thinking, yeah, let's do this one because this one looks super easy, right? So we start this workout, and it became very obvious very quickly that this was going to be quite a considerable amount of rounds that we're going to complete, right? So I think my first Cindy, I'm pretty sure I did 23 rounds of this workout. And I mean, it was awful. Like, it was absolutely awful. If you do the math on how many pull-ups and how many push-ups and how many squats that was, I just thought to myself, I'm like, like, it's a love or hate relationship. I don't know if I like this CrossFit stuff. Like, do I have to work out this hard every time, you know, I'm in the gym? And it wasn't like I wasn't used to working out hard. It's just a different type of intensity, right? So we kept playing around with these crazy CrossFit workouts that had, you know, an extremely high volume of gymnastics, which my background, I had a little bit of advantage with that, but there were certain things that I had never trained on, which were climbing ropes and using men's gymnastics rings. There was also with skipping rope, you had to do doubles or triples with your skipping rope. And then there was Olympic lifting and powerlifting. Naturally, I'm strong just with my genetics and also all the years of gymnastics, lots of core strength and so on and so forth. But I would always shy away from heavy lifting because of my muscular frame. I didn't want to actually become more muscular. So when CrossFit came along, it was something that was pushing me a little bit out of my comfort zone with, well, how much can you back squat? I have no idea. How much can you deadlift? No idea. The only thing I did know is that I had a really good bench press because I would, just for, you know, like a joke or whatnot, anytime that the boys were bragging in high school about how much they could bench, I'd outbench them. And it was just something that was kind of funny to me that I did, but I never trained bench. It was just genetic advantage with the length of my arms and my shoulders and so on and so forth. So started doing these CrossFit workouts, and back in CrossFit's infancy, it was very different than it is now. The unknown, the unknowable, we still have that. The workouts were very random. There wasn't really too much periodization, or there wasn't too much structure. So like some of those intense workouts were 36, 45 minutes long. You know, you're going is lots of burpees, lots of running. And now the sport has evolved and changed so much in the last 13 years. There's way more structure, there's way more lifting. The cool thing is that some of female and male Olympic lifters or power lifters even challenge those lifters that just do that solely for a sport. So there's been a lot of growth, which is really cool. And what I can say for myself, because I started when I was finishing my fitness competitions, I did my last one, I want to say when I was 41. And at the same time, I had decided to do my first CrossFit competition. So I had finished one competition and I was going right and leading into the other. And with my fitness competitions, I did very well, ended up placing second in Canada. And it was one of those ceremonies that was like, here's your trophy, okay, see you later, bye, and that was it. In my first CrossFit competition, I did the online qualifier. I made it to the next level, top 60 females in Western Canada, regardless of age. Went to compete in Vancouver, and we were at the Richmond Oval, huge competition. I was getting interviewed and emailed and phone calls like, who is this woman who's 40, who's just qualified 6th in Western Canada that's going to this competition? And it was unbelievable. The media, the coverage, the interviews, the experience, it was actually truly overwhelming. And it had nothing to do with what I looked like. It was all based on my performance. So fitness competition, you have 50% is your athletic performance in the routine, and 50% is your body composition and how you look on stage. So if you have short legs, right, and you don't have like a little narrow waist, you're gonna be marked down, not based on your athleticism, but just based on your body structure, right? So you can only do so much when it comes to, you know, your nutrition and diet and making sure that you're coming in, looking a certain way. It's a very interesting thing because the journey to get there, right? The journey to get there and all the hard work and the dedication and the dieting, which is probably the hardest part of the whole thing. You have this routine and you're working towards something. So even though it's hard, it's pretty exciting, right? When you actually get to that event, you know, you're putting on all your rhinestones and your glitz and you have your hair done, your nails done, your makeup done and all this, right? You get on stage, you're on this huge high, the performance with my routine, the crowd was going wild and standing ovations, and it was an unbelievable experience. But the aftermath, right, which they really don't tell you about, is that you're on a specific diet catered to drop you so far down in body fat that it is not sustainable and it's not achievable to stay at that weight or stay at that level of leanness, right? And so a lot of athletes suffer from depression because you put a tremendous amount of weight back on fairly quickly as soon as you start eating again, but you're not eating the way that you were eating before. So what they don't tell you is that the aftermath of doing fitness competitions is that not only do you suffer from depression, but when you're told you have to completely change the way that you look, it definitely affects the way that you feel about your own personal body image. And I think that women have a really hard time with that because we are always being bombarded by, there's social media, but even like before there was social media, when I was growing up, you had your magazines covers, you had this like, it's looks, it's beauty, it's beauty, it's beauty. There, of course, was this unrealistic image that you see in all the magazines, being, you know, having long legs, being thin, being taller. And if you didn't kind of fit into that category, what it did for young women growing up is like, you know, I think it attributed to eating disorders. I myself would skip breakfast and I'd do hours and hours of cardio to try to fit into this, you know, this certain image that, you know, as young girls that we thought was like pretty, right? And the thing that I really was attracted to with CrossFit is that it's giving women permission, right? Which is a bad word, but to live in their own shell and be whoever it is that they want to be. You see all kinds of different body types in CrossFit. What you don't see is you don't see any skinny women. You see women that are empowered by their strength, physical strength I think attributes to mental strength, and they're doing these unbelievable feats of fitness. And, you know, in a lot of cases, they're outperforming, you know, men, right? And CrossFit, from what I can remember as a sport, has been leading the way where men and women are equal when it comes to the prize purse. So the prize purse keeps creeping up each year. Top earners earn over $300,000 US if they come in first, right? And then it goes all the way down to 20th place, but the men and the women equally make the same amount of money. And I think that that's really important as well, because most sports are so, like, there's such a huge variation, a huge difference, right? The men are paid very, very well and the women aren't paid very well. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the women aren't absolutely amazing at their sport. It's just the way that it has been, right? So I love the fact that CrossFit is doing that. and just like leading by example, right? So I certainly have seen over the course of the last 13 years that I've been involved, there's no cap on raising the bar in this sport. Like, I keep thinking to myself, oh, next year I'll be in a different age group, or 5 years from now I'll be in a different age group, or 10 years from now I'm gonna be in a different age group. It's gonna be, it's gonna get easier, things are gonna be scaled, I won't have to work as hard maybe, the weights aren't gonna be as heavy, I won't be as sore all the time, right? And what 13 years ago was, I guess you could say, like, hard, right? Not just for my age group, but I would say, like, pick a movement like a ring muscle up for ladies. Not all ladies could do ring muscle ups 13 years ago. Not all ladies could lift a certain weight in the sport 13 years ago. When I competed in 2019, I was in the 45 to 49 age group, and I was going in that year 48 years old, and there was one workout where I had to do 40 ring muscle ups, 120 wall ball, and row 80 calories, and the time cap was 20 minutes. And I just thought to myself, this is like, it's so crazy, but it's so cool at the same time that the 45 to 49-year-old ladies, right, had this expectation to do that amount of work. Like, 25 and under, not a problem, but 45 to 49, right, was just unbelievable to me. So that's the thing that keeps happening, is every single year they raise the bar, and every single year everything that happens is rewriting all of the textbooks when it comes to weight training and what should be, and this and that, but also for older adults too, right? Everybody just keeps getting stronger. The impact with the sport that we were talking about over the last 13 years, I can also look at the impact of the type of training that I have done myself and that I've offered, and how that has changed women specifically has been nothing but truly amazing. My partner and I started out the business doing outdoor boot camps, and boot camp seemed to be a word that people, not just women, but men would thrive to, because they knew it was going to be hard and they knew there was going to be results, right? But in boot camp, it's more of circuit training, right? And you're doing high reps of things that are disgusting, like burpees and that type of thing, right? And you're sweating and you're getting a good cardiorespiratory workout in, but there isn't necessarily a lot of lifting, right? It's just, you're gonna come, you're gonna hate it, it's gonna be awful, you're gonna leave sweaty, and see you later. So we started out doing these outdoor boot camps. We didn't have a location, so we would travel around to one of the elementary schools and use their field, and then we go down to Kinsman Beach, and we used the lawn there, and we actually would pack all of our equipment with us. So we had some light dumbbells, we had some boxes, and we had some light kettlebells. From our outdoor boot camps, we came inside. We had this idea of, we loved what CrossFit was, and we loved the weightlifting, and we loved the aerobic element and the combination, but I don't necessarily know that people were ready in the community for that yet, because they were coming from the boot camp and all of the outdoor activities and all the conditioning and all the cardio, right? So if I fast forward that to the present, and over the course of everything that's happened in the last 13 years, when I took over the business in 2014, I brought back the boot camp, and I started in the boot camp to introduce strength training to the ladies, and the importance of strength training, and how that was gonna change their bodies, and how that was gonna, you're doing boot camp there's a few things that you can learn in boot camp, like how to do a better burpee, or so on and so forth. But when you phase from just doing all of the cardio and you phase into much, much more, which there's accountability, there's strength training, there's proper coaching, there's development, you're getting stronger. You're not just getting stronger physically, like it carries over into this beautiful change, this beautiful transformation, where I've seen people that, they've fought through depression, they've been in a lousy relationship, they've left that relationship, they're stronger, they're leaner, their ability to cope with things and stress has improved. I don't necessarily make them confident, but they become more confident and they have more confidence. And when they have more confidence, it's a beautiful thing, because then they can go on and they can change things in their personal life. And I see that time and time and time and time again. But what I also see is I see these young women, and they come in and they want to be strong. They want to be able to lift weight. They are not looking at like these little skinny, models in magazines anymore. How do I put on muscle? How do I become stronger? And it's just an absolutely beautiful thing that's happened, not just in the community, but just in the world in general, right? With women, and it's not just women too, because we have a lot of male clientele as well. But how, CrossFit, myself, has impacted the community, how it's changed myself as an athlete is truly remarkable. And I'm pretty excited for, what's gonna happen, going forward, right? And I certainly know with everything that has happened, it's been a weird, strange world in the last couple of years, is that, people have utilized this type of training as an outlet for their stress, right? And with everything that we do in here, it's hard. You're dealing with failure all the time. I think that for me, I used to shy away from failure because just wanting to always be a perfectionist, right? So I think that when I was younger, there were certain opportunities that I might have missed out on because I was too afraid to fail, right? The other thing too is just having such a competitive drive from such a young age is that I hate to lose. It's like my sister would be like, don't play cards with her, don't play cards with her. So for me, constantly being bombarded in your workouts with failure it's a nice reminder that you have to fail in order to grow, right? So if you do not fail, and it could be a lift, it could be, that workout I didn't do very well. Yeah, you beat yourself up a little bit about it, but then you realize that if you don't actually fail, you're not gonna succeed, right? And so you start to understand that more and more and more. And the beautiful part about it is that because I've had to deal with so much failure, it can't help but make you more of a humble person, because if somebody outright beats you, fair and square, there's no judges that are judging like who has a better routine, who has a smaller waist, who has longer legs, right? It's somebody ran across that finish line after they finished their workout before you. And maybe because there's a lot of strategy in this, and there's a lot of pacing and making sure you don't come out of the gates too hot. So maybe they had a better strategy. Maybe they're stronger than you. Maybe they're just fitter than you. Maybe they're just better at you at that particular thing, right? And so for me, if somebody beats me, I'll go up to them and I'll shake their hand and I'll be like, that was incredible, right? If I beat somebody else, I'm always standing at the finish line cheering everybody on as they come across the finish line and shaking their hand for that as well too. So there's a lot of camaraderie that you see, and you don't just see it in the CrossFit Games. You see it in local competitions. You see it, we have annual competitions here just for our gym with all of our members. and you see the camaraderie that happens there. And it's such a wonderful feeling, and it's influenced my partner so much. He's been to a couple of these competitions with me now, that he actually just recently made the change from being on more of a bodybuilding program and a powerlifting program to actually wanting to do the CrossFit programming so that he could compete next year. And I think that it's such a cool thing to witness, that kind of camaraderie can influence somebody to actually want to do it themselves after they witness it. So what it's like to be a top athlete and what it's like to stay at the top and compete at that level for such a long duration. So I did my first CrossFit competition. It wasn't my first competition though, but my first CrossFit competition in 2012. 2013 was the first year that they introduced masters athletes in CrossFit. So before that, if you made it as a masters athlete, you could go to the CrossFit Games. But in 2013, they opened it up so over the age of 40 could go and compete if you qualified, right? So it was perfect for me because I had just started the year before that, right? What I was doing at the time, which is kind of crazy, is I was not only trying to get to the CrossFit Games as a masters athlete, but I was trying to get to the CrossFit Games as just an athlete in general. And I had some wonderful opportunities to be able to qualify for that. But unfortunately, both times I ended up becoming very ill. One, I had a terrible flu, and the next year I got terrible food poisoning. So it just wasn't meant to be. So I don't know if that motivated me more to go as a masters athlete and to try every year after that. But it was because I have competed before, and because of my dedication to other sports like gymnastics, I wouldn't say it was something that was new to me on the amount of work that I had to put in. And just being at such a young age, being dedicated and being committed to something and working hard towards something, I already had that. What I would say that I didn't have was how to balance that with everything else, right? So, putting the blinders on, doing the hard work, making sure that you're eating properly. Then of course, as you get older, you have a job, you have to balance work around competing. So that probably was one of the most challenging things is I start my classes here at 6 a.m. in the morning. At the time, I was also teaching evening classes as well. So leaving the gym late, getting home, prepping for the next day, unwinding, lack of sleep, back up, and coming back and coaching again. In between my classes is where I would do my training. So those were really, really long days. So that was probably the toughest part. Just really loving what I'm doing, because before I actually opened up my fitness facility, I was working for someone else, and I was in ladies retail, and it was hours upon hours of putting time in on salary, working for somebody else, and not really being rewarded for the fruits of your labor, right? So I started following my passion when I was 37 years old. So of course I put everything into it, right? And I was so motivated to qualify for the CrossFit Games, especially after the 2-year period where I was ill. But at the same time, it's extremely stressful when you go to compete and you're in that caliber of potentially being one of those people that can qualify, right? And all the extra pressure and interviews and stress that it puts on your shoulders that's probably the part that's the hardest for me. I would say because I've been at such a high level and such a high caliber that if I wasn't to qualify, I don't know what that would do to me, right? And fortunately, I've worked hard enough that I have been able to qualify as a CrossFit master, or even qualify to go to the regionals with the younger, athletes as well. So the first year I didn't make it to regionals, that was tough. But I know the regions kept changing and they kept getting bigger, and then there was more athletes in the pool from the US, and it wasn't just Canada anymore. And then they changed everything. So I had to say goodbye to that, but I still had the opportunity to go as a master's athlete. So I guess there was still something there, right? Last year I took off. The year before that, I did qualify in 2020, but they canceled it. I didn't know what was gonna happen in 2021, so I took the year off. That's where I started to find balance, because I couldn't work those crazy hours because I kept being shut down, and I was doing Zoom classes, and so it opened up an opportunity to just have a little bit more of a personal life, because it was all, there was no work-life balance. It was just work and train, work and train, work and train. So I can't really be too upset about what's happened over the course of the last 2.5 years, because I'm at that point now where I have more of that work-life balance, and now the issue is trying to find a way to get back to qualifying, but still have a little bit of that balance. And so it's, I'm going over some hurdles right now where I'm like, am I training hard enough? Am I training long enough? Am I sleeping enough? Should I be indulging in anything at all, or should I be super strict and just trying to figure out what that is and what that looks like? So coming back after taking a year off, what I can say is you don't remember the difficulty of the workouts. Like, it's almost like when you're going at that level and training at that level, it's this different kind of pain. Like, it's like turning on, some athletes have said it's like turning on that extra gear that you kick into, and there's a lot of pain in that gear, right? It's like the gear that actually takes you from being 10th to like right onto the podium, right? And unfortunately, if you don't train kind of in that gear, you don't get better at being able to go that hard. So I would say through these last couple of qualifiers, I've moved on to the finals now. The hardest part for me is picking it up to that kind of speed where you're going that hard, right? And I usually don't get sick in a workout. I can only think of one time where I had way too much pre-workout and it was coming back up again. But what I can say is the first qualifier of this year, I was crawling out the back door dry heaving in the first workout, and the second workout, I was crawling out the front door. In the second round of qualifiers, I had kicked it up a notch, right? And there was no dry heaving. I mean, it was still bad, right? But there was no dry heaving. So I definitely have changed my programming dramatically since the beginning of December to get back in the game again, right? And it's one of those things where I keep thinking, okay, am I ready for retirement, or do I want to keep doing this at this level? But it's one of those things where it's so rewarding, and it's knowing that you can do it, and the sense of achievement that even though it's hard, it's fun. And I usually say to people, I say to them because they're like, oh, it's so hard, or wherever they are on their fitness journey. And I I said to them, I said, what you don't know is it's the hard that makes it good. Because if it was easy, you wouldn't appreciate it, right? And so if you can get your head around that, no matter if you're just starting, whatever your athletic endeavor is, and all of a sudden you're hit with like, oh, that was really hard, and I don't know if I want to work that hard, or in any aspect of your life, right? Well, then you're not going to really reap the rewards, right? So I keep telling myself it's the hard that makes it good, right? And with the balance, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Yeah. We're working at it. So in order to go to the CrossFit Games, they have the world's largest online qualification that you can do. And over the course of the years, it's been a 5-week period where they release one workout every week. You don't know ahead of time what it's going to be, so you're preparing for everything. It could be 2 different things that you have to do. It could be 3 different things that you have to do. They take elements of weightlifting, gymnastics, and conditioning, and they put them together, and you never know what you're going to get. You never know how heavy it's going to be, and you never know how long it's going to be for. But usually, it's anywhere from, it could be a 20-minute piece, it could be a 10-minute piece, 12-minute, 14-minute. It could be little pieces like a 3-minute piece, rest, 3-minute piece, rest, 3-minute. It could be you have to achieve a certain number of repetitions to move on to the next tier. So it could be like a tier, like it's pretty cool. Very creative ways of testing your fitness level, because they're looking for the fittest people in the world. So after the online qualification period, that typically has been a 5-week period starting in February going into March, you're ranked by your age group, and you're also ranked worldwide. So you have your worldwide ranking, you're ranked per country, and you're ranked per age group. So the masters athletes are ranked in the world, because it's the top in the world that get to go. And then 18 to 34 is ranked to go to a different area to do a semifinals. And then they would qualify unless they're the top 2 in their country. In 2019, I placed 3rd, and I placed 3rd in 2018. Now, 2018, I went in the best shape of my life, and unfortunately, I had an accident where I went over my handlebars on a mountain bike going way too fast, and I separated my IC joint, and I still went and competed. And had I not have separated my IC joint, we never know, right? It was so close. There was 11 grueling events in 4 days. It was unbelievable. I had all kinds of chiropractors, because they provide them there, physiotherapists, ART, myofascial release, and I had all these professionals working on my shoulder. I had it x-rayed before I went, and that's where they said that yes, it was definitely an AC joint sprain. I shouldn't have been able to do what I was able to do, but because I think that there was so much musculature around the area of injury, I was able to, for most things, engage my lats to keep my shoulder together as I competed. So it was so close that the very last workout of 11 grueling workouts, if I would have placed 2nd in that workout, I would have came in 1st and came home with the gold. This is 1st in the world. Yeah, but I came home 3rd in the world. That's how tight it was between the top 3, with a freshly sprained AC joint. So that was pretty crazy. So that, making it onto the podium, because that was my first time that I made it onto the podium in CrossFit, that motivated me even more to get back onto that podium again. So I went back the next year, and the next year it was 3 days and only 7 events. And I made it back onto the podium. But that year I wasn't in as good a shape as I was the year before. It just was the way that the training went, right? And that year my son also had to go in for an emergency appendix removal. on my second day of competition. So it was really hard for me to get into the headspace because I wanted to just fly home. But he assured me that he was okay and he was taken good care of. So I still managed to continue and get onto the podium that year. 2020, I qualified again. Everything got canceled that year. 2021 came around and I made the decision to take a year off because we weren't sure. We thought that maybe everything would be canceled again, right? And so during the year that I had off, you know, I got into my head, I'm like, am I gonna retire? Am I ready to, like, you know, hang the lifters up? I started having more of a personal life, which before was just like work and training. And I was really enjoying my personal life. And so I thought, well, maybe, you know, maybe I am done. Maybe it's time for me to just be a coach instead of a coach and an athlete. And then I started like exploring other things. Like maybe I wanted to do powerlifting. So I did 3 months of powerlifting. Maybe I wanted to do Olympic lifting because I realized after 3 months of powerlifting, I didn't want to be a powerlifter. And I loved Olympic lifting. So I was like, oh, yeah, I want to do some Olympic lifting. I did 3 months of Olympic lifting. And I'm like, you know what? I miss all the cardio and I miss all the gymnastics. So I'm gonna go back to doing it all instead. And then I started doing it all and I'm like, you know, I think I still got it, right? I think I can still do this, right? But I wasn't training at quite the same intensity as I had been before. And so I made this conscious decision that, okay, let's go for this again, right? Let's try this again. So, you know, the last few years, I'd put on a few pounds. There was stress, you know, this, that, and whatnot. So I hired a nutrition coach. I hired a personal coach for accountability. And I was able to lose almost 20 pounds since the beginning of January. And since then, I've had a coaching change for the better. And we've made it through the Open, to the Masters qualifier. So they take all of the Masters athletes in the world and they're in divisions of 5 years apart. So 35 to 39, 40 to 44 and so forth. And it goes all the way up to 65 plus now, which is crazy. So it's like I can never retire, right? Because they're gonna keep changing it. But anyway, in my age division now, I'm in the 50 to 54 age division, and it doesn't get any easier, I'll tell you that right now. Because all the girls you competed with before pretty much are still getting older and they're in your division still. So I made it through the first round of competition where they took all of the athletes, and you know, some of these divisions are massive. They have like 25,000 Masters athletes, female, in, you know, 40 to 44 age group, right? Down to 10%, so that shrinks the playing field. The last one I just did, they took the top 10% down to the top 30. And now the next one that I'm going in is it's the top 30 that they're taking down to the top 10. And the top 10 actually get to go to Madison, Wisconsin to compete in the CrossFit Games. Before, how it would be all work and all training, and I had no balance in my life, and there was no lifestyle, right? And now going into the finals, I've been really trying to find that balance, competing again. And you know, there comes a point too in your life where, you know, I'm 50 years old now, and you know, it's not just all about work, and it's not just all about competing. It's like you have to live a little bit too. So that's where I'm working on seeing if I can still compete and have that balance in life too. The balance is just enjoying more than one aspect of your life, right? So, you know, I come here, I enjoy seeing everybody progress, and I enjoy seeing, not just, you know, with whatever they're doing in the gym, but in their personal lives too. And then for myself, training isn't always fun. It's like your second job, right? So trying to make that more fun, right? And doing, things that I like and throwing this in and throwing that in. And, I think it's a good thing that I like training so hard. But, sometimes knowing that, maybe it might be better to go home today, right? Rather than forcing myself to do it. Or maybe, I didn't sleep last night because I was up sweating all night with menopause, right? So I'm gonna go home, have a nap, and then I'll come back. Or just, maybe I didn't come back because I'm really tired and I need to take a break, and being okay to do that, right? But then the other side of it is like, I have a partner now, I have a puppy. We take the puppy for a walk before training. So the puppy's allowed me to get outside more, and I'm in nature more, and I'm enjoying that more, right? And with my partner, going out for dinner, maybe going out and having a cider or two, right? And working that into the whole picture instead of just work and just training. It feels really good. It feels really good. And, I would like to get into the top 10. But I don't know at this point yet if that's gonna happen. And, there's that competitive side of me that if I don't get to the top 10, I'm probably gonna be really upset. But then there's that other aspect of like, okay, well, is that all you did, or did you also enjoy, your life with your partner and your new puppy as well, right? So if I can make it all happen, then I think that I will have found that balance, right? There's the results you get from your career. There's the results that you get from what you put your energy into, right? So with my training. But then there's also, there's like the relationship aspect and, spending time with people you care about, right? So that's what's been great about the last few years of my life, right? So, well, I guess we'll see what the next chapter leads to, right? Oh, I'm Jolaine Undershute. I am a CrossFit Masters Games athlete, age 50 to 54. There is so much more to me. I'm a mom. I have a beautiful partner. I have a wonderful son who's 12 now. And I am at a great age where, I'm discovering that there's maybe more to life than just competing. I can't even believe that's coming out of my mouth right now, right? But I'm at an age where I'm really, I'm enjoying so many things about my life, and I'm looking forward to the future. And I've done a full circle of being a CrossFit athlete to stepping back from being a CrossFit athlete to coming back and realizing that that is what I'm truly passionate about. But there's other things that I'm passionate about too, and just finding balance with all of those things right now. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting.